Time for the Lowdown with Lorenzo Alexander. He joins us in studio. The Lowdown brought to you by Hutch's, redefining city dining. Good afternoon, Lorenzo.
Hey, what's going on, guys? You doing well?
You're doing really well. How about you?
Good. I'm hanging in there. Just cold, trying to get my blood warmed up a little bit.
The winter hits you hard here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets me. I mean, especially since I've been, in Arizona this last summer and stuff. And so, and I still have, I think it's probably my fault is that I have on my Apple Watch, I have like my weather set up for all the cities that I live in. And like Arizona is the prime example. So every time I wake up,
can't have that first on the list.
85 degrees.
Yeah. I was talking to my buddy Mark Dalton in Arizona this morning.
Okay.
And he was complaining, I got to go all the way. They're going across country to play Tampa. I said, it's only 78 degrees in Tampa. I said, so what?
Right.
Yeah, you're being counterproductive going down there for the off season because you don't give your blood a chance to thicken up.
No.
You
not at
spend
all.
6 months here, and then your blood kind of thickens up.
It's worth it, though. It's worth it. I'll take the trade-off.
All right.
Hey, I don't know if you probably have not spent much time with our show. You've been in practice today, but we've been talking a lot about a topic that I think would probably be near and dear to your heart. Look, Sean McDermott talks a lot about team culture and building a culture and getting the players with the right DNA, and he's done that 2.5 seasons here in Buffalo.
Right.
And here you go up against an opponent on a Sunday that might be diametrically opposed. It's almost not. It's almost like culture versus talent this week. You see it that way at all?
Not really. I mean, because we have talent on our team. When you say that, it means like, you guys are undermanned in a sense. And so I think it takes probably a combination of the two. You want to have talent. Talent gives you an opportunity to win and maybe win a championship. But I think to be able to close that gap, how do you get from, OTAs of, and after the draft and going through training camp to now get through a season, hopefully get to the playoffs and then make a run to get to a championship. And that's where culture comes in. So you talk about what Sean talked about this morning, you talk about discipline. So what does that mean? Your routine every day, how you show up to work, how do you lift weights, how do you watch film? When things get hard and it doesn't look right, are you still staying true to that because you know that it works for you? And then number two, really love, and that means relationships with your teammates, that chemistry you talk about, getting to know them, playing hard for those guys, playing hard for the coaches. So then people can talk into your life and you can take good criticism, you can give criticism because that's how you grow throughout the process. And so I think it's a culmination of the two. In my opinion, I think culture and environment is probably more important because I can take a less talented team that's willing to play for each other and grind for each other a lot further than I can take a bunch of individuals that have great talent but aren't willing to sacrifice maybe a couple of touches for themselves.
I think it should be made clear that neither you nor I am saying the Browns don't have that, right? I mean, they're just this week's opponent, which is why it comes up. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Yeah, well, I'm not in their locker room.
Right.
But not a lot of noise is coming out like they're pointing fingers at each other.
Right.
The reason why when I look at the film or look at the tape, and they probably say it's just a lack of execution. I mean, the guys have the talent to get open and be in the right places, but when you're just a little bit off, it can kind of snowball on you. You get frustrated, and then the results aren't there as far as wins, and so it can be hard for you to kind of get things rolling again.
These Browns at 2-6 are firmly backed into a corner here. They really can't have another loss. They're 3 games back in the loss column right now to the last wild card contender right now, which is Indy at 4-3.
Okay.
So 2-6. I mean, this is it. You saw a similar team in Philadelphia that was desperate.
Yeah.
How much do you think that can help serve you this week, knowing how backed into a corner Cleveland is?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of addressed it. Obviously, the last time we played a team that was backed in the corner, as you mentioned, in Philly, we didn't show up and play our best defensively. And so, again, just reiterating, you can't take teams for granted. And I think I said the same thing when we said Philly. When you watch Philly's tape, it was a lack of execution, wasn't a lack of ability or doing the things the right way, but guys dropping balls. So for them, all they have to do is just in their locker room, they're saying, all we got to do is execute. It's been us. We've been beating ourselves. And so with that mindset, you come in expecting to getting their best, what people expected of them since the beginning. And that's how we approach it every week. We don't expect to get, a team that's not executing. We expect them to try to hit on all cylinders and really exploit some of the weaknesses that we might have shown the last couple of weeks from a defensive perspective.
With Bills linebacker Lorenzo Alexander is going to give us the lowdown as we move through the next couple of minutes here. I had a discussion with Steve Tasker earlier this week. Remember when Steve used to work here?
Yes, I haven't seen him in a while.
Part-time staff.
Yeah,
He's officially
right,
a part-time employee. I
Hey,
think.
man, when you play as long as you can do whatever you want to do.
Apparently
yeah.
you can. I had this discussion
the
about
case.
underdog status. The Bills,
Yeah.
Las Vegas line, a couple of point
Right.
underdog. I said you guys would probably ignore that, but he thought teams can make that an issue and make it like a motivator.
Yeah, maybe some teams. I mean, we don't. I mean, we're showing up regardless of what, Vegas has put us at or what the national media thinks of what we have in our locker room and coming out to play. That's maybe extra you can throw in the fire for some guys to motivate, but at the center of everything, we want to be a good team and make the playoffs, and we want to come out and win regardless if we're favored by 10 or, are underdogs by 3. It doesn't really matter to us.
You've got Corey Leggett, a veteran player, proven player
Yeah.
in this league. Granted, he's coming off, what was a major injury, but played 3 games in Oakland. But he had that torn quad tendon last year that kind of cost him all of last year. But he's back. He's a year removed from that. What do you think, the coaching staff and the front office felt he could bring to your defense to bring him in and plug him into your defense?
Yeah, just the veteran leadership, having the knowledge of playing for, 8 going on 9 years now. I believe Bob Babbage was with him in San Diego as well. So he had obviously a former relationship and could really speak to his leadership qualities and some of the things that he does very well as far as being a football player. And I think the more guys you can, help Ed with that have played the D-tackle spot for a long time, the more pictures that he has of guys in there that can actually speak to it from a player's perspective is definitely going to help him as well.
Got another player to ask you about on the defensive line, Jordan Phillips, who has been around now for a year or so, and he's, in the starting lineup. He's kind of an energy player, but he's more than that. He's got talent. Leads the league among defensive tackles with sacks right now, with 6. Huh?
Yeah, he's been doing a great job, and obviously the more opportunity he's gotten, the more production has shown up, and he's going to continue to be a dominant player, I think, in our defense. It's a guy that's just really taken advantage of his opportunity. Since he's gotten here last year, I think he has a unique personality, and guys gravitate around him. And you can see right here, he always getting us juiced up, the crowd involved, and he's been a huge benefit and he's really grown as a leadership.
Is he like that in the locker room? Because we get him on the show here and he's monotone. He won't raise his level.
Well, some guys, just aren't very comfortable with the media. Sometimes, but in the locker room, he's great. He is who he shows on the field. I think this is maybe a little bit out of his element, or he doesn't want to show you.
Work with him. Will you work with him on that?
Maybe I will. Maybe
I won't.
But if I tell him y'all don't pay me, he's really not going to ever want to work with y'all. So, but he's great. He does a good job in the locker room. He is who he is. We have a lot of fun with him.
I think there were shots just fired.
Hey, I'm just letting you know, man. If you want somebody to break out and really show up, like I do every week.
He's just keeping it real.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know how you get a guy to come out of his shell a little
Don't
bit.
aim those shots at me. Aim
I'm
them
not.
at,
We
aim them
talking
at Jay
about
Harris.
it. I'm just talking. We
aim
talking.
at our producer.
We did
a solution.
we did a feature story on Jordan this week on BuffaloBills.com, and we were asking him, who do you feel has kind of been instrumental in kind of helping ingratiate you into this called, going back to last year when he kind of came on board after a month into the season, and he said Starr was the guy that's really helped him the most.
Right.
And I said, well, in what way? He said, well, he's kind of helped me with my filter, because he said that he is a person that there really was no filter. It goes straight from his brain and out his mouth.
That's him.
And he would say exactly what's on his mind and not care who it impacted. And he said, I'm working on that, which I think, going back to the culture here just for a second, kind of demonstrates if there is a culture in place, you're cognizant of the people you're impacting with the words you say that you're counting on Sundays. Like, you don't want to turn a guy the wrong way because, you said something foolish or off color or whatever. So I think it's a step for him from a maturity standpoint, especially with the reputation that he was stamped with in Miami when he got clipped out there, right?
Just a young player just trying to learn his way. And I think that's why Sean puts such a premium on having veterans in every single room, because then you can have a guy like Starr who's been around and is a professional that can speak to him, because obviously they play the same position. Jordan has gotten to know Starr on a personal level.
Right.
And so when Starr says something to him, he's trying to help him. He's not out to, let me try to put myself in the best way. He's trying to speak to him so he can help him grow and obviously become a better professional, be a better player, and then ultimately, get paid by the production that he has on the field.
You got to read the story, because Starr we went and talked to Starr right after, and I'm talking to him, and I said, how have you helped him? He goes, we can go back to the first week. He goes, we're in film after the first game that Jordan played, and Leslie Frazier is calling him out in front of the entire defense for not doing whatever. And Starr's like, I'm looking at Jordan, and I can see the he's just the boiling. He said he was getting like a steam pot ready to whistle, and he said I had to grab him by his arm because I was sitting next to him, and I'm like, just relax, just take it.
Yep.
Because he said he thought Jordan wasn't really exposed to that kind of accountability from coaching before, and it was a shock for him.
Yeah.
But that's how Leslie. I mean, you could speak to that better than I can. But that's how Coach Frazier is.
Everybody. I mean, and it's not like it's unwarranted. They're criticizing you for a purpose or giving you critiques so that you can become a better football player and help our team. And so you have to have a sense of accountability and humility if you're in our locker room, because you don't get that everywhere, like as you're saying. And so when you first get it and it's in front of everybody, it can come across the wrong way if you're not used to hearing it and receiving it. But knowing Frazier, as I've known him as long as I have, and most of our coaches, if not all of our coaches, they're all trying to make you a better football player in the end when they are giving you some critiques and criticism, even when you've had a good game.
John Murphy, Chris Brown, and the unpaid Lorenzo Alexander in the studio with us.
I've been beating it for 4 years now. I guess guys know I'm going to be gone in a minute. So
hey, I'm not that much different from you filling in from
Tasker. You know what I mean? So
I'm not getting any residuals from Tasker.
You're
either.
right in the middle of this.
Right.
Hey, you guys have faced some good running backs this year. Le'Veon Bell, obviously Adrian Peterson. This guy, Nick Chubb, I would put right kind of alongside with them, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if people know that, but he's really good.
He's very explosive, dynamic, has great vision. And when he gets out in the open field, I mean, and can, turn a 5-10 yard run into an explosion play and get into the end zone. And so he's a guy that we definitely have to be aware of where he is when he's in the game, kind of his placement, because they love throwing screens to him as well, which we've had an issue with this year. And so it's going to be definitely a big-time challenge for us, and we know they're going to try to exploit and make sure that we've shored up some of our deficiencies in our gap integrity the last couple of games.
The second half of the Washington games looked like you shored that up. Is that
but you have to be consistent with it.
Right.
I mean, every week they're going to test to make sure that it is shored up, and that there isn't any weak link out there, because every team. Okay, well, let's see if they got it corrected. Oh, well, maybe they haven't got it corrected, because we saw a play in who did we play before Philly? Miami?
It was Miami.
Yeah,
right?
Miami. Yeah, he beat Miami.
Miami. Philly ran a same play out of 20 personnel with two backs.
Yeah. Yep.
And then last
Washington
week
did it.
ran a same play, 20 personnel with two backs. So I can almost guarantee you, especially with Kareem Hunt coming back,
right.
they're going to put two backs in the backfield, even though we stopped in the second, and they're going to run the same exact play to see if we got it corrected. I mean, and that's just how the NFL works. It's a copycat league, because why come up with something new if a team has shown that they can't correct the issue?
Speaking of their offensive line, though, that's one of the units that's come under heavy criticism just for not giving Baker enough consistent protection.
Right.
I think he's been sacked 20-something times already this year, and his numbers are down across the board. I mean, he's upside down, touchdowns to interceptions. His completion percentage is down about 5%, and when he came out in that class, he was known as the most accurate of the bunch. I'm not asking for game plan here, obviously, but are there some things that you guys feel good about going into this game that you think you might be able to get them on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have a couple of new pieces on their offensive line, and we have some familiarity with, like, Wyatt Teller that was here. But anytime that you aren't comfortable or you feel like you're under pressure, I mean, that's a quarterback's kryptonite at any point.
Does his internal clock look accelerated right now?
Yeah, I mean, and we can see, and pressure doesn't necessarily always mean you're blitzing somebody.
Yeah.
Just, pressure in your face, whether it's a tackle pushing the guards back in your face or coming around a corner that feels like you have to speed up things, and that throws off their timing, as we're talking about, where you're speeding things up because, okay, well, I haven't been getting protected, so let me speed this thing up. And then now you're off timing with your receivers, and you're missing guys by a hair here and there. And then that turns into frustration, and so you do see that. But any quarterback that's ever pressured, their QBR normally plummets. 30 points minimum, just because that's everybody's kryptonite.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Alexander in studio with us. A couple more minutes. We're going to get to his lowdown, his keys to the Bills game against Cleveland. But I want to ask you one more question about the Washington game. You had your high school football coach here in attendance. You tweeted that out, huh?
Yeah, who happens to be my uncle and who was my father figure growing up. And so it was really cool for him to be able to come out.
What's his name?
Stephen Moore. It's
Okay.
my mom's brother, and so he's been coaching me since I was 5 years old. As a in baseball to football, and he's still coaching me now. As I'm in fatherhood, a husband, and helping me out. With different life experiences. And so last week the Bills had an initiative where they had I think maybe 300 or 400 youth coaches here locally, and they wanted to bring out a players' youth coach, and they chose me, and I picked my uncle, and so he came out and just shared, kind of his testimony, his experiences as a football coach, because he's been a lifelong coach. He still coaches high school football now, but with me in particular, as well as just some of the things that he's seen over the years that can really help young men and women become good players.
I don't know if you looked at some of the comments underneath your tweet.
No.
But there was one guy that said, he looks so nice when he's not making me crab crawl for 200 yards. Did he make you crab for 200
my
yards?
uncle is old school through and through.
Because
and,
that bear crawl, crab crawl, whatever you want to
and a lot
call
of
it.
the things that he put me through and a lot of my friends through probably wouldn't be warranted in today's. Yeah, parents wouldn't be happy with them. But yeah, he was just hard on us because life is hard, and so a lot of the life lessons you always had players, which I was really proud of, guys that he coached would always come back and say, I didn't understand it at the time, but I appreciate everything you did for me. It made a lot of sense, and it helped me in college, helped me as a husband, helped me as a father, and so those are always the things that you had. So he has a great legacy. Back in California, as far as all the young men that he's really inspired.
In that tweet, was that your high school letter jacket you had on?
Yeah, that wasn't my original one. My original one I can't wear, but my mom a couple of years ago for my birthday, we went over to the same spot and was able to remake it for me.
Oh, that's
What's the high
Which
school?
was really cool. St. Mary's College High School.
And a cap too, huh, to go with it?
Yeah, well, my boy Bill over at New Era let me come in and design a couple of hats, and so that was one of them that I put
That's
together.
great. What a great day. And here's to see, a win. That's
Yeah,
good, right?
yeah, it was great. He had a great time, and had the cold got to him a little bit. He got his big old parka coat on, but us California boys don't like the
not
cold.
like
Thin
you.
blood again. Thin blood.
All right, Lorenzo is here for the lowdown, where he gives us the keys to this Sunday's game, and let's go. The Bills in Cleveland. What do you got number one on your list of lowdowns?
The biggest thing is prevent the big play. I think that's been anytime teams have gotten a big play within a drive has led to points. Most of the time touchdowns, just because most teams can't go methodically down the field on us, and this team lives off of that. Obviously with OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., and you think about Landry, you think about Chubb in the screen game and some of his explosive runs. So being able to prevent that, because I think not only is that going to help our defense, I think it's also maybe lead to a little bit of frustration to them if they can't get that big play to really get their drive started and be able to score points and move the ball on us.
You got number two there, Chris? You have it?
I don't have it in front
I got
of
it
me.
in front of me. The lowdown number two. We're just working this out. The Bills have been a really good offensive red zone team this year, and your second key is winning the red zone. What do you have in mind?
Yeah. So obviously the offense putting up points, but this is really for the defense.
Okay.
I think for us, we have to have a game mimicking last week where the Redskins got down in there, but came away with only 3 field goals. You talk to Josh in any offense, that's very discouraging. You drive the ball, 60, 70 yards, and then you can't figure out a way to get in the end zone. You got points, but, most of those people, want to score touchdowns at the end of the day. And I think with a struggling offense, you don't want them to feel like they're getting any confidence by getting the ball in the end zone.
And so the third one is pretty much Chubb, right?
Yeah, and this is where it really all starts at the beginning. It should have been probably number one, is making sure that they don't get any balance or comfort in being able to hand him the ball off. So we have to really put a great game, people having great gap integrity, staying in their gaps that they're assigned to, and then once he commits, be able to rip off your block, rip off the guy that's trying to block you, and get to the ball and tackle him with population, because he does have the ability, much like Adrian did last week, make a guy miss, bounce off a couple of guys, and then turn a play that should have probably been a 4 or 5 yard gain into an explosion of 20, 25 yards.
Lorenzo, it's been great to be home for 3 straight weeks, but it feels like it's time to go on the road, right? And you guys have played well on the road.
Well, it's probably going to feel like a home game again. I mean, the Bills Mafia has been traveling well with us this year, and so I wouldn't be surprised with only a 3-hour drive that we don't have a big-time crowd like we've had in New York and Nashville.
Sure.
So I'm actually looking forward to seeing our crowd come out again and making some noise for us. But, yeah, it's always good to go on the road and change some things up. But I like playing at home, but I'm sure I'll see a ton of Bills fans down there in Cleveland.
All right. Thanks, Lorenzo. You good? We good? You coming back next week? Or do we?
Yeah, I'll be back. I mean, at this point, I'm all in. It's probably my fault that I've allowed this to linger as long as it had, and So I mean, I'm kind of a victim of my own admission.
Right through those doors.
Yeah,
Make sure
I know.
you
I've been
tell-
on it, man. It just nothing has changed. I'm too nice, is what it is.
agree.
I'm just too nice. Yeah.
Thank you, Lorenzo Alexander, with the Lowdown. Most Fridays here at 2. We'll see if it happens next week. Lowdown brought to you by Hutch's Redefining City Dining. Chris and I coming back with more. One Bills Live from the Seneca Studio in Orchard Park on Buffalo Bills Radio.